Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth Responsible Travel and Tourism Forum webinars. My name is Jacqueline Cannell, and on behalf of Baxter Travel Media, we would like to thank our webinar series sponsors, Air Canada, Delta Chelsea Hotel, and the Ted Rogers School of Management at Ryerson University. Now, these sponsors have supported us for 6 years, and we thank them for continuing to believe in the work that we do to advance sustainability in the travel industry. We also like to thank TIC Insurance for being the sponsor for our Canadian webinar today. So today's webinar is Great Canadian Destinations, the Path Towards a Sustainable Tourism Industry. Now this is a really big topic for a big country, and we have two speakers today that span this great continent of ours. And first speaker will be Laura Magon. She's Tourism Destination Competitiveness Branch. She works actually for the Alberta Tourism, Parks and Recreation. She's calling us from Edmonton. And from the east side of the country, we have Jonathan Foster. He's the Executive Director of the Grossmore Institute. Jonathan is calling us from Rocky Harbor, Newfoundland, and we're really happy to have you, Jonathan, and good to hear that you've been spared, the impact of the storm. Both presentations will take us to about 1:45, this is Toronto time, and then we will have Q&As. Please type your questions as they come up. Tell us who they're for, and I will moderate the session and compile and cluster them by themes, if necessary, at the end of both presentations. Now, let me introduce you to Laura. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Just wait for my presentation to come up here. I'm going to give an overview of what we mean by responsible tourism in destinations, and particularly in the Canadian context. I also wanted to add that, so you see at the top it says International Centre for Responsible Tourism Canada. I'm also the director of that, and that's more of the angle I'm looking at for today, the broader view of what's going on in Canada. Now, this next slide is the Cape Town Declaration on Responsible Tourism and Destinations. This was penned back in 2002 at the first conference on responsible tourism and destinations that took place in Cape Town, South Africa, and it's very relevant still today when we're looking at developing destinations. This is probably a refresher for many of you on the line, but for those of you that are new, I'm just going to quickly go over what each of these are, and you'll see that they are very applicable to developing destinations 10 years later. The first point is that in order for a destination to be developed sustainably, responsibly, is that it must minimize the negative environmental, social, and cultural impacts. In Canada, we have a lot of sensitive ecosystems, wildlife issues, as well as social and cultural diversity that tourism should be a vehicle for reducing that impact versus creating negative impacts. It generates greater economic benefits for local people and enhances the well-being of host communities by improving working conditions and access to the industry. In the Canadian context, we're looking at majority rural communities, and a lot of those communities are single industry communities. So tourism is an opportunity to diversify those economies, which brings benefits to the people that live there, gives them access to jobs, et cetera. I'll go into more detail with that in a moment. It involves local people and decisions that affect their lives and life chances. So if there's an impact on the local people, they should be involved in the decisions revolving tourism destination development. Makes positive contributions to the conservation of natural and cultural heritage and the maintenance of the world's diversity. That's straightforward. Provides more enjoyable experiences for tourists through more meaningful connections with local people and a greater understanding of local culture and environmental issues. Again, I'll go into more detail in later slides on that one. Provides access for physically challenged people. This is something that's been brought to light or has been discussed a lot more in the last couple of years. So that one's still a work in progress for the tourism industry, but something that's very, very important. And is culturally sensitive and engenders respect between tourists and hosts. So we want to create a relationship between the two, a beneficial relationship between both tourists and the community versus tourists coming in and exploiting or not providing benefits to the community. Now, at the end of that, that's a lot. The Cape Town Declaration. There's a lot of points in there, and I must admit, even I'm not. I don't have that memorized. But the way to pull it all together, one thing I keep in mind always when I'm doing destination development is that responsible tourism is about making better places for people to live in and better places for people to visit. So if you capture that first point first, that you think about the people who live there first and making their lives better, then it'll become a great place for people to visit. And if you think of a place, one of your favorite places that you went to visit, what was it about that place that was so special? Was it, that it would have been, did you have the thought that, wow, how lucky are the people to live here? So keeping that in mind always when we're developing destinations. Now, to take that first point, making better places for people to live in, what exactly does that entail? How can tourism make better places for people to live in? And at the very core of it, tourism brings jobs. And I'm not talking just, MIC jobs, the low-paying frontline jobs. Those are there, but it's also professional and service-related jobs. So you can have a career in tourism that is a meaningful career and somewhat well-paying. And that provides opportunities for young people and families to either remain or return to rural communities, which is an issue definitely in Alberta, and I imagine in many other parts of the country where you have these rural communities and youth and families are going to the big cities to find those jobs and careers. So if you have tourism in your community, it's an opportunity to bring those families and youth back. Tourism brings opportunities for capacity building and training. So this includes tourism specific, so workforce development, professional training, those sorts of skills, but also talking about the community. The community puts value on their local history and heritage, and it's an opportunity for them to learn about their own community, which often is, you take it for granted where you live that you haven't experience the tourism experience within your own community. So by creating those experiences for people who are coming to visit, it ultimately helps the local people understand a bit more about their own culture and community. Tourism is an opportunity to raise awareness about local issues, and some of the examples I have there are especially important here in Alberta, where we have issues of wildfires and wildlife issues. So it's an opportunity to raise awareness about those issues, but also provide mitigation, ways to mitigate those issues. So people are coming in and visiting a crown land forest, and there's always there's in those areas there's random camping and campfires that don't get put out, which causes wildfires in the end. So it's an opportunity to tell that information or relay that information to visitors and locals at the same time with ways to mitigate that. So once they're aware that this could be an issue, then they'll be more aware of what their activities are doing. Tourism works in collaboration with other industries. So in a lot of our smaller communities, they are single industry communities. So forestry, fishing, oil and gas, agriculture. Traditionally, communities have been reliant on that single industry. But what happens when something happens to that industry? So, for example, mining. If the mine shuts down, what is there for the community as far as jobs or industry? So tourism is an opportunity to provide that diversity and work in collaboration with the other industries so that there's always a sustainable income for the local economy and not just reliant on that one industry. I have an example in a moment of where that has worked well with the industry working together with tourism and benefiting the local community. And as I mentioned before, tourism places value on the community, and it supports its sustainable growth and diversified economy. So when a community first engages in tourism and they have new visitors coming into their community, it places value on their culture, on their community. It makes them realize that, hey, there is something special in my community. There is a reason why somebody might want to come and visit and see what it's like to live where I live. So it places that value on that community, which ultimately brings, a sense of community spirit, community pride. Which goes on to the next point, that it creates civic pride and community spirit by improving aesthetics, creating opportunities for involvement and opportunities for citizens to improve their circumstances. So by taking pride in their community, they want to show off. They want to say, hey, look, my community is fantastic. This is what's great about it. And then they take pride in beautifying it. So they'll put, flower pots will get put out, maybe little banners, maybe some directional signage on, hey, you want to go check out this trail over here, or come see this shop. And it creates opportunities for the community to get involved. So you'll see a lot more volunteer, a lot more new businesses that have to do with providing experiences to visitors. So it gets the community involved in supporting supporting the community and the visitors that go to it, which ultimately helps them grow their own community. So it provides an opportunity for communities and citizens within the community to create their own path and come up with ideas that would ultimately help them improve their community. And tourism is an opportunity for recreation, and that promotes an active lifestyle, which clearly is an issue in society today about getting people out and active. So creating experiences that are recreation-based, so trails, sport, activities of any kind that helps promote an active lifestyle and gets both citizens and visitors alike getting out and enjoying the scenery, enjoying the local ecosystem, as well as local culture events, that sort of thing. So this is the example I was talking about. This is the Beaver Boardwalk in Hinton, Alberta, which is just outside of Jasper National Park. It was just a marshland, and there was a beaver dam way out in the middle of it. The local industry is forestry and lumber. And what the local industry did is they built this boardwalk. So the land was provided by Hinton, and they provided, the industry provided the wood and put together this boardwalk that takes you out it's a walking trail that goes, I'm not sure how long the distance is, about 1 kilometer or so, but takes you out into the marsh. So you get a chance to experience that ecosystem that, you don't often get out to, you don't get the opportunity to be out in the middle of a marsh. So it's used by both locals and visitors, and like I said, there is a beaver dam. I was told before I went out that the chances of seeing the beaver are very slim, but I was lucky enough, as you can see in the photo, to actually see the beaver up close and see him swimming underwater, and you can see in that photo he's got, I think it's just a twig or something in his mouth. So to have that opportunity, so it brings you closer to nature almost. And of course there is birds and other wildlife and flowers and vegetation that you have learning opportunities along the way. One thing I noted when I was out on there is that there was about 65% of the people out there were locals, so taking their dog for a walk, just getting some exercise themselves. So it's used by the community. But then also I came across a multi-generational German family that were visiting, and it was from the little grandkids all the way up to the grandparents. The whole family was out there. So for them it was an opportunity. We said, hey, look, there's the beaver. So they were just going for a walk, and they got to be up close with, Canadian wildlife. So it's a great opportunity for both visitors and the community. So I think this is a fantastic example of connecting industry and tourism to create a better place for people to live in and a better place for people to visit. Now, more specifically, some of the ways in which you can create a more responsible, sustainable destination, in particular, is addressing the supply chain and creating linkages. So looking at how you can get more local products into the tourism experience, be it in the restaurant, in the hotel, on the tours, on the, outfitting, everything. So how can you build those opportunities to strengthen the local economy? And one way, and I know there'll be a session in a few weeks on culinary tourism, but one of those ways is looking at the food chain and sourcing local ingredients. And sourcing local ingredients strengthens the destination's economy by linking tourism with the agricultural industries. And I'm sure you may have heard, farm to fork or field to fork or field to table. There's all sorts of different expressions out there. But by relaying that information to visitors that, hey, the food you're eating was grown here in this local destination, they get to taste as well as, see, hear. It just adds another sense to their experience. So they use, within culinary tourism, they use the same terminology as with wine, is that you get to taste the local terroir. So it is an opportunity to connect those industries as well. And it provides an opportunity for visitors to learn more about the destination's agricultural heritage and diversity. So you may not know what products are grown in the area that you're visiting. So, I mean, in Alberta, you might assume that, there's wheat and grains that are grown, cows, we're known for our Alberta beef, but we also have a lot of ranches that have elk and bison and agricultural products. There's small family farms that do vegetables and fruits, and those sorts of things can be sourced into the meals that you have in restaurants and hotels, etc. And then sourcing local ingredients contributes to an authentic local experience that engages the sentence, and it all comes back to that word authentic. So it just adds to the overall experience that the visitor is having. And this is just one example within the food area. Unfortunately, I'm not able to play these two videos for you, but they will be in the presentation when you're able to download it. But both of these are available on YouTube, and I would encourage you to go and check them out because they are examples of how fantastic and what those tourism opportunities might be within a community of connecting agricultural products to tourism. So the first video that's Chef Michael Smith. He is a celebrity TV chef based out of PEI, and he is one of their ambassadors for tourism to PEI. So in this clip, he's talking about the importance of sourcing locally and pulling it into ingredients and what that means to the final product. And then the St. Lawrence Market is a farmer's market in downtown Toronto, and so this video just goes over the experience that you can have while you're at a farmer's market. And although this is one big example, in many communities that the farmers markets are, at least we're seeing in Alberta, it's a growing trend, and I imagine that's across the country as well, that people want to engage in a farmers market. So you see more of them popping up, and it's an opportunity to try out that local product. Now, authenticity and character of place is very important as well. So when you're developing a destination, you want to think about, what is unique about this place? What is its character? What is its culture? And not wanting to alter it and take advantage of that character to be able to, capitalize on it, create an experience around it, and visitors want to experience that. Down in Southwest Alberta, Southeast BC, and Northern Montana, there's an initiative called the Crown of the Continent, and they are focusing on geotourism, which is a niche sector that there's a definition, tourism that sustains and enhances the identity of a territory, taking into consideration its geology, environment, culture, aesthetics, heritage, and well-being of its residents. So you can see it's not very far off from the definition of responsible tourism. But it's all about authenticity and not creating false experiences, so to speak. But I encourage you to check out the Crown of the Continent. They have Waterton National Park, Glacier National Park. So they've got these fantastic mountainous regions in one part of it, but then there's a lot of ranching communities around the outside of it, and how they've developed their experiences and they're promoting which experiences to go to. They are sticking to what is special about that region. Now, when it comes to authenticity, how do you go about marketing your destination, keeping that character of place in mind, and how do you relay that information across? And there's been quite a few good examples of late. Newfoundland has done a fantastic job of that. If you've seen Destination USA's commercials on TV, I think they're trying to head in that direction as well. What is special about the U.S.? What are our features that you don't normally think about when you're coming to the U.S.? And they've captured that in that video. And being in Alberta, I have to toot the horn of Travel Alberta as well, which is a separate. I don't work for them, but I still love this particular initiative, and they use the terms "remember to breathe." So it's all about the experience and taking in the experience that you're having. And I don't know where they air those commercials, but I know they have a huge emotional impact, and the images do a great job of translating the character of Alberta. So not just the mountains and the Rockies, that's one experience, but the bulk of the province is about ranching, the cowboy culture, the Western culture, the Northern Lights. There's more to the province, and they've managed to capture that all into TV spots and internet spots. So there's a link there to their, I guess, most famous commercial that has been award-winning over the past year. So I encourage you to check it out, or you can on YouTube. If you just put in Alberta Remember to Breathe, they should pull up. But I mean, last year I had the chance of going down to southern Alberta and watch them present this commercial to the operators and residents, and there were tears on the faces of people who were watching the video, because it connected so strongly to them that they felt that connection, that emotion, and all that just from a simple commercial. And we like to think about it here in Alberta when we're talking about destination development and tourism development. We're not talking about just attractions and hotels and resorts. We're talking about experiences. And I won't go too much in depth with this, because that's GMIST's strength. But experiences is at the core of it. And experience is about engaging visitors in the destination that creates more memorable and meaningful experiences. So if they're able to experience something, they'll remember it. It'll mean more to them. But how do you create those experiences is the difficult part. And it's essentially bringing in that local flavor. So people want to meet the locals. They want to meet people who are living there. They want to know how how they live. They want to have guided experiences, and local guides, of course, but they want to have that guided experience, that learning opportunity, and they want to be able to engage all of their senses. So from taste to smell to everything. They just want to be able to get their hands dirty and really get a sense of the destination. And again, I have another video. I'm sorry I didn't realize that this would be difficult when I created the presentation, but within experiences, it comes down to storytelling as well. And how do you tell your story about your business, about your destination? How do you get that story out there? And this is one example. This is a new video put on by Travel Alberta, and this is the story of Sierra West Cabin and Ranch Vacations, which is in southwest Alberta, down in the Pincher Creek, Crow's Nest Pass area. And what they do is they bring visitors out on the ranch, and you can do a cattle drive. I mean, how cool is that? So this video is talking to people who've had that experience, who, what it means to them and what resonates with them. But then also, these are the two owners. Why do they want to do that? Why do they want to take people out and have them with them while they're doing their day-to-day activities? So this is a fantastic example of storytelling. But you can bring those stories into many other many other points. So not just into creating media to put out there, but when you bring your visitors to your destination, how are you going to tell the story about your community? How do you tell that story? There's an example here in Alberta, the Boomtown Trail. They use characters. So they take historical figures and have created these characters that represent each community and tell their story that way. That's the story of the Boomtown Trail. So there's many ways in which you can do that. You can do that through song, through dance. How can you tell the story of your community? But again, I'll leave the experiential stuff to Jonathan and GMIST. Now, when it comes to accessibility, this is, as I mentioned, it's not a new thing, but it's something that the tourism industry around the world is taking more seriously, more to heart. And what does it mean, accessibility? Is it just about adding wheelchair accessible bathroom, or what exactly does that mean? And basically, it's about creating the opportunity for anyone to experience your destination, no matter what their accessibility level may be. So, taking into consideration not just people in wheelchairs or that are blind or can't hear, but also with the growing baby boomer population, we're also talking about just mobility issues and needing the opportunity to sit down, so having benches in your community and maybe having some interpretive data around those benches. Also for people wanting to bring their families, multi-generational families, out to the destination. How can you cater to that? So just looking at the ways in which you can make your destination accessible to everybody. Again, this was a video from Visit England, where they've done a lot of work on developing accessible tourism in England. And this video talks about what a particular bed and breakfast owner, why they decided to go down the route of creating an accessible accommodation, and what they see the value in that is. And basically they tell us that it's a market that nobody's really captured. So I mean, they're 100% booked all year round. So if you have a business, I mean, how perfect is that to have, to capture in on this audience that hasn't been catered to in the past. Here in Canada, I think the best example of a destination as a whole who's addressed this issue is Quebec. And they have developed this website. They also have a brochure that you can order. But it basically tells you where the accessible sites are. So if you have mobility issues and you want to go on a vacation, you need to know in advance, what are the specifications? Where can my wheelchair fit through the door? Can I, what experiences can I have? Are there going to be stairs that I, then can't use? So it provides that information on Quebec, on each destination, and you can see there's a map on the experiences that somebody can have. So kudos to Quebec on that one. Still working on it in other places. Ontario recently put out a policy, I'm not sure if it's quite legislation, but on hotels having to meet certain standards of accessibility. But that's a regulated situation. I mean, if you're a destination or if you're a business, it's something maybe you should, look to addressing before it even, comes to the point of being legislated or regulated. Another example out here in Alberta is with Hosteling International. They have done some work in the Rocky Mountains to get those more rural, not necessarily the high-profile hostels, but the ones along the Icefields Parkway, which is right in the middle of the mountains if you've been out there. All of those hostels, they will be making them accessible. So they had a consultant come in and do an assessment of what's needed for them to be accessible. So they can now have visitors with mobility issues come out to their hostels down the Icefields Parkway. So there's lots of opportunities out there that addresses this issue. I would like to see more of this happening across the country, and that's something that the ICRT Canada is working on how can we facilitate that understanding and that opportunity for tourism in Canada. At the end of the day, it comes down to taking responsibility. So as I mentioned, do you wait? Is it the responsibility of government to make it a regulation or legislation? Or is it your responsibility to address these issues and create a more sustainable, responsible destination yourself? And it comes down to what role you will play in making Canada a more responsible and sustainable destination as a whole. So that concludes my presentation. So I gave the overview. I'll now pass it on to Jonathan, who will talk more specifically about what they're doing out at GMIST.
Great. Thank you very much, Laura. As always, your presentations are very thorough and insightful, and they're always full of really great examples about the experience of tourism. And so please be sure, everyone, to access the archive and perhaps take a look at the YouTube videos that will illustrate the examples that Laura has given. I also want to add that for those who want to expand their knowledge on sustainable tourism, they must become familiar with the ICRT. In my view, and I work with them a bit, they are definitely the gold standard in responsible tourism research. And most importantly, their work with the industry to develop and implement sustainable tourism in the full travel value chain is really exemplary. So I wanted to say that on behalf of Laura and ICRT and Dr. Goodwin and everybody who does an excellent work at the ICRT Canada and the UK. So Jonathan, your turn. And I want to say thank you very much for that lovely picture. I assume that's your child, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and it really reminds us that sustainability ultimately is an issue of intergenerational justice, and so we thank you for that. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I wished I had a camera to show you out my window right now. There's a moose eating some leaves and looking in at me. I feel like I'm being judged already on my presentation. So
Wonderful.
Yes. Beautiful day here in Gros Morne, and thank you, Laura, as well for that great introduction. What I'm going to do throughout the next 20 minutes or so is give you a bit of a background very quickly on the Gros Morne Institute for Sustainable Tourism and how we help move things forward in the Atlantic Canadian region, but more specifically talk about the case study that we use in a lot of our training and development initiatives around the region, which is the actual region of Gros Morne. Tell you a little bit about that, what makes it special, and some of the successes we've had and some of the challenges we've had over the last decade and a half. So the Gros Morne Institute for Sustainable Tourism is a Canadian NGO located in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and as you'll see on the map, it's on the eastern coast of Canada. We really are tasked as a nonprofit organization to work with the tourism industry in Atlantic Canada. So that would be the provinces of Newfoundland and Labrador, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Nova Scotia, to really help grow and develop the tourism industry, specifically around sustainable experiential-based travel. We do that thanks in part to some very strong partnerships and investments that we've got from regional, provincial tourism departments, regional governments, federal agencies like the Atlantic Canadian Opportunities Agency, the Canadian Tourism Commission, and Parks Canada, and then from private investment that we've gotten from organizations like Transat and regional tour operators from Atlantic Canada. And I really want to point out one particular thing that I really think is very much needed when we're talking about development within our destinations and from regions, and that's that word investment versus funding. I find that a lot of people will slide into, oh, well, we need funding to support and move these things forward, which is great. I think that in the vocabulary we need to be looking at from an investment perspective, because I think that with money being tighter and tighter, They really want to know, those people who are providing money and input into an initiative really want to know what the return on that investment is going to be. So it's one thing that we are really big on at GMIST, and that is looking at it from an investment perspective versus a funding perspective. Really, GMIST got its start, like any great initiative, by a group of tourism geeks sitting in a bar, hashing out what was going on in the industry and jotting things down on the back of a napkin. And we were throwing things back and forth of what was happening, where were things going, and we really decided that there was a shift that had to take place in our industry. And we really needed to create this competitive and vibrant, sustainable business community by really shifting our thought processes away from looking at tourism as a product or a commodity that we could sell out into the marketplace, and really sort of crafting things around what the story we had to tell in our region and what the experience could be for the visitor. And this is something that we grabbed hold of and we really pushed forward in our region from a tourism development perspective. Really, our mandate from an institute is to enhance the quality and sustainability of tourism afforded throughout Atlantic Canada. We do this through a variety of training programs that we deliver not only here in Newfoundland and Labrador, but also all around Atlantic Canada. And recently we've actually expanded out where we were part of a delivery in Manitoba, and we're looking to expand into other parts of Canada to assist in tourism development around sustainable experiential travel development. The Institute and its programs really look at the quality of the tourism services and facilities in hoping to advance the areas of sustainable tourism. We try to diversify what people are offering within their destinations, and most importantly, we're looking at capacity within Atlantic Canada's tourism sector, but as well, how do we help them reach new international and domestic markets in a very globally competitive marketplace that we find ourselves in the tourism industry. Now, the approach we take on this is very much looking at it from a triple bottom line one, where we understand that communities need to generate economic development within the region, but we're trying to help them do that in a way that is sensitive to the cultural implications that it can have on their community and the environmental implications as well. So it's very much a community-based approach where we're not coming in and saying this is the way you need to do that. I think we've all seen the results of that kind of initiative. This is really about building capacity on the ground and helping those individuals really gain the confidence to understand what it takes to be successful from a sustainable standpoint in today's tourism industry. And I think once they've gained that confidence, then they start trying new things and new initiatives. They try to push their operators and push their players in the region in new ways and new directions. And what we've seen emerge, at least in our region of Canada, is some really unique ways of looking at tourism and delivering authentic-based experiences to visitors. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but really what we try to do is specifically help those communities really understand what they need to do in order to create incredible visitor experiences. And generally, they actually understand and know this. They just need the confidence to believe in themselves to deliver it. So the areas of training that we do really focus in around on sustainable tourism practices. So we have a program called the Beacons of Effective Sustainable Tourism that's sponsored by Transat, and we were one of 2 international grants that received money to enhance sustainable tourism practices from a regional perspective. So over this program, we've trained probably about 300 tourism owner-operators in environmental best practices within their businesses. A very interesting field that we've been in, and we've recently been working with Sustainable Travel International and the Sustainable Tourism Eco-Certification Program to help align some of what we're doing with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council criteria, so that when we decide, or if we decide we're going to move more to a certification-based approach, that a lot of what we've done is already in place that will link back to the criteria that have been established. We do a lot around marketing and sales of helping people understand basically the path to purchase process of how they get that information from the product or the experience out to the visitor and make that final sale. One of our key programs is probably the Edge of the Wedge program, which is the experiential travel development program. We've trained over 1,000 tourism operators and support workers from government agencies, DMOs, in really how you look at your destination through a visitor's lens and what they could find within that destination for experiences, stories, cultural events, and how you craft those and put those into a complementary package that you can sell out to a visitor. These all roll into packaging and partnering programs, destination development. Overall, they fall under the larger umbrella, really, of experiential, sustainable-based tourism development. So I want to move on to really talking about the case study that is Gros Morne, and it's probably one of the better known destinations in Atlantic Canada, and it has a lot to do with the efforts that have taken place by the Provincial Tourism Department of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. As you can see, it's located way over on the east coast, and it's on the western coast actually of the island of Newfoundland. There's one of the things that I find is very unique about what has happened here in Gros Morne is how it's been positioned as really one of those exotic locales in a northern type climate. It takes a lot of effort to get here because it is an island. You either have to come by ferry boat or by plane. It takes a great deal of time via connection flights or traveling through the different routes that you can take to get into the province. And the province really has positioned it in a unique way. And I would encourage you to have a look at this tourism ad that was produced. And just very quickly, the emphasis on this is about, as you listen to it, it tells you through the journey of your life, you should make sure you have one great chapter. And that one great chapter is your visit to Gros Morne, to learn the story of what Gros Morne and what it can mean to you. So it's positioned as a very mystic place, one that is exotic in its locale, not only because of its natural beauty, but also because of the cultural implications that I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. Just a few quick facts. It's the Gros Morne region, which is really the national park itself, is about 1,800 square kilometers or 667 square miles. It has 7 coastal communities in it, not a very large population base, right around about 4,000 individuals. Those 4,000 individuals have traditionally worked in the fisheries, or the forestry sector, and it's only recently that this push towards tourism has really happened in the last 15 to 20 years. We get about 180,000 visitors a year. As I said, Gros Morne National Park is part of the Parks Canada chain across the country, and it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I will say that one of the things about this region is it's had its ups and its downs. Because of the collapse of the cod fishery in the late 80s, early 90s, we saw drastic layoffs all up and down the coastline, and many of these communities were devastated with out-migration of their young families leaving. And what we looked at was what role can tourism play in helping to sustain these communities and to grow the economy within the region. And that 180,000, just as a quick touch, that's actually, since the initiative that I'm going to talk about here in a few moments, has grown by 60% just in the last 10 to 15 years, so quite significant. I want to give you sort of an idea of what what this place really is from a viewpoint, and why it's significant in the larger scale of things. Now, the real importance from a UNESCO standpoint for the region is that this is the region where the theory of plate tectonics and continental drift has been proven. And what you're seeing here is the plate tectonic movements that created the Appalachian mountain chain. Basically, this is the Earth mantle being pushed up and out and being exposed, and the rocks that you're seeing are actually rusting. And really, this region gives us a complete cross-section of the Earth's layers beneath an ancient ocean. So it's really important from that perspective, and that's one of the reasons why it got its UNESCO designation. But it also got it because it contains areas of superlative natural phenomena and natural beauty. And it's really an opportunity to provide outstanding examples of the major stages of the Earth's history. And as you can see, it has incredible vistas that really show and demonstrate this whole geological process. Just a few more pictures. This is really showing things from the sort of two main ecosystems that we have here. One is a coastal lowlands, and the other is an alpine plateau. Very beautiful, as you can see, and the mountains here with the low-lying plateaus are really things that you know, I was reminded when Laura was talking about that breathe piece that the Alberta Tourism had used. I find that's what a lot of visitors say, is that, wow, this is the place where I can breathe, where I can become close to nature. It also is really outstanding for its glacial erratics that it has, U-shaped valleys, the fjords. These are inland fjords that were carved out by glaciers that were retreating. So they're actually not, there is a small land bridge in between, closing it off from the ocean, and the glacial deltas, terraces, and the moraines that exist. It also has a very unique set of flora and fauna in the region. Because of the sort of Arctic alpine freak that happens in the region, you'll see, you know, the native hare here is an Arctic one. We have caribou, moose, which was introduced. So, you know, the flora and fauna here are phenomenal, and it's another way that the visitor can interact within the region. It's also very unique because of the island way of life that has existed here. So, you know, the first real settlers here were migratory French and English fishery communities that set up in the 1600s and 1800s. They were mixed in with Aboriginal people, being the Mi'kmaq and the Innu. Really permanent settlements started to happen here in the early 1800s. And one of the things about sustainability here in Newfoundland is that it's really existed from the beginning, and I think it's because it was necessary to be self-sufficient from the get-go. You needed to understand how to preserve your woodlands in order to ensure that you didn't cut all the trees down, that you would have firewood for the many seasons to come, that you would ensure that the inshore fishery was well taken care of, that there were opportunities to hunt and fish. So it was very much a self-sufficiency process along the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. So very beautiful spot, and one that has, as I said before, has seen, you know, many ups and downs from an economic standpoint. And from a destination development viewpoint, the real pushing force behind what was happening here in the region was the Gros Morne Cooperative Association, which was established in 1993. And this really came out of a push from the collapse of the cod fishery to have a nonprofit organization work with the park system, work with other operators and other entities within the region to help grow the economic realm in a sustainable way of tourism within the National Park region. So this Grouse Moor Cooperative Association really supports the National Park and a lot of the things that it does. Its mandate really reflects well over the management plan of the National Park and the protection and preservation and interpretation of the park's heritage. The products and the services are really targeted towards the visitor to help them better understand the natural and human history of the park. And then the revenue is really poured back into the community and the destination to help develop those experiences and opportunities. Just quickly, the co-op really looked at the process of their destination in a unique way. They decided they wanted to make sure that what they were doing was going to be beneficial for the community. And in order to do that, they realized that they needed to look at the research that was out there and available to ensure that what they were producing was what the visitor wanted, and that it was an experience that had meaning to them, and that was authentic, and that was not only something that could be bought, but something that could be something of pride for the community to share with them. So this is a model that was followed. Really, it's common in a lot of destinations to look at your research to ensure that your new products and experiences are a result of it, and that the cornerstone of any successful brand and marketing is ultimately linked through to the consumer demand. We had a lot of help from this through Parks Canada, the Canadian Tourism Commission, as well as the Provincial Tourism Department. Really what we were trying to figure out is, what is the story we're trying to tell in the region? And as a great world-class destination, we wanted to make sure that we understood what we were trying to be, especially in a globally competitive tourism market. And if we could understand what we wanted to be, and we could be confident in what we were going to deliver, that everything else would follow in place. So we sort of follow this process where we kept asking, what makes a great tourism experience, and what do we really want people to remember when they leave the Grouse Moor region? So we wanted to ensure that everything was well themed, that there was an emotional trigger in everything that we did, that it was authentic, it was accessible by a variety of different visitor groups. It had some sort of enriching value. It could be educational. The promotional component really took into account the whole destination. There was some sort of hands-on or experiential component to that, so we were having a true sensory experience of it. There was a value-added process to it, and most importantly, that it exceeded the expectation of the visitor. So to that end, the co-op really moved forward, and for the destination, they created a vision, or what we call now a blueprint. And really, what we decided for this region is that we be recognized as a national center for culture and creativity, inspired by and reflecting the natural environment that will attract international attention. There's three guiding principles that we've instituted. We really want to stimulate a vibrant cultural industry in the region. We want to elevate the overall offering of the cultural initiatives that are currently available. And we really want to engage our provincial and national cultural organizations by doing that. We want to foster local cultural traditions in a way that can lead to economic benefits for the individuals and communities without detrimentally impacting that from a community perspective. There's 5 strategic goals that attach to this as well, and it really was to enhance and sustain the cultural activity, recognize it for its culture and its landscape, enhance the infrastructure that we have in the region, but to do this in a way that actually, instead of the typical process of saying we need $20 million to build 3 large-scale theaters, to look at what we could do from a non-traditional standpoint, because it's part of the cultural makeup for things like inviting people into your home, or using the outside natural beauty of the region for theatrical experiences or something like that. We were trying to figure out from a funding standpoint how we could do things with the infrastructure that we had and use it from a non-traditional standpoint in cultural activities within the community. Healthy organizational structures based on sustainable human resource core, and ensured enhancement, growth, and sustainability of Gros Morne National Park cultural initiatives through increased investment and support. Once again, you see that word investment in there versus funding. We're looking for strategic partnerships that not only benefit ourselves but benefit our partners at the end of the day. So the key result that we've seen is a number of things. Anyone who's ever been to Gros Morne, or if you are coming to Gros Morne region, will realize very quickly that this is a incredible center, not only for its natural beauty, but for its cultural integrity. You'll find incredible festivals. We have a summer music one. We have a theater festival with world-class theater presentations. We try to merge our culture and art with the natural setting, so we have a festival called Trails, Tales, and Tunes, which really gets people out into the park, onto the trails, takes into account the rich tradition of storytelling in our region, and then the incredible musicians that we have, and really helps sort of meld all of those into this really funky and unique festival. The Writers at Woody Point which is sponsored by Scotiabank, has become one of the preeminent festivals around storytelling from a writers and music perspective in Canada, and they consistently get incredible artists to come in to do workshops and do presentations as part of that. What all of this has tried to do is we've tried to coordinate it in a way to position the destination as a strong cultural-based destination that is presenting itself in a very unified front. So we try to really come at it from a cooperative vantage point and market ourselves as a single destination versus these sort of separate small communities within the larger national park. Really, we want to tell our story through the experiences that we can give to our visitors. I invite you to have a look at this YouTube video as well once you're able to have a look. This gives you an idea of how we try to connect the visitor to the traveler through some of our music. So this is called a pub night in Rocky Harbor, and it's a really sort of interesting look at how we do our music from an experiential standpoint. So just to look at some of the successes that we've had, we really, we've tried to look at how we can fuse a lot of things. So the food and the culture. So we have a lot of wild game that we incorporate into our food around here. So as you can see, breakfast is caribou sausage. It's really something that the visitor, once again, gives them an authentic look at how we live in this region, but also how we incorporate those things into our culinary pieces that we can deliver to the visitor. And this really tells the story of the people in the land. That is very key to who the people are of this region, and I think why visitors come to see us. Community gardens have been started by trying to create more local produced food. It's a region that is very hard to grow things in, just given the climate and at times the lack of topsoil. As you can see, there's a lot of rocks in that garden. But it's something that has brought the community together and really helped them sort of grow and develop some of this stuff and then incorporate it into their local restaurants. Youth engagement has been huge in regards to developing the community, and the young girl there, they've started a Save the Earth Club and out of all of this, and they do beach cleanups and sweeps around, and you can participate as an adult, but only if you're not a bossy adult, and that's their motto on their flyer that they have around town. We've really also enhanced the experiences that people are offering, and I think it's really helped people to understand how and what the visitor is looking for and how they want to access it. So we've done a lot of work through this destination development process of getting these operators to think about what they're doing in a completely different way.
Jonathan,
We also, from
sorry,
environmental management side, have linked a lot of the community's plans to the larger ecosystem-based approach that the national park takes. And out of that, we've been able to access investments for things like no idling policies. So we've got no idling signs all around the region. And we've done things like waste management diversion, which is very hard in an area where we have to truck out a lot of our recycling and things like that to get it to larger recycling centers. And then we've done a lot of stuff with the local operators through the Grossmore Institute for Sustainable Tourism's BEST program, which is really the one I talked about earlier, which is the training and development for tourism operators around sustainable practices.
Jonathan, because we're running a little bit late, I wonder if you could just give us a quick overview of your last two slides, and then we have a couple of questions as well.
Sure. So just the challenges very quickly are what all of us face is really overcoming sort of that competitive monster that we have, where we look at each other as competitors for that visitor that's coming through. And really what we were able to do is pull these people together and say that no, you're not competitors, you're actually collaborators. So that was, overcoming that challenge it took time, really looking at the idea that you could just put a sign out along the road and whoever came along was your customer. Sort of trying to bring people into the 21st century approach of tourism and how you, once again, do that path to purchase connection. Huge challenge, and it continues to be one. Balancing the need of the community versus the need of the visitor still is a huge challenge. From an infrastructure perspective, what 180,000 visitors need versus what 4,000 community members need is sometimes at odds. So you have to be very careful around that we don't overbuild from an infrastructure perspective, but don't have the tax base to support it. Still the idea of selling products versus experiences, we're still working on that, as well as making sure that everyone understands that each visitor needs to be treated as a unique individual and not just as a mass approach to tourism. And really just to continue to build on the brand that has been established, and that has come from the CTC version of Canada, that feeds into the Newfoundland approach to the Gros Morne side of things. And I'll just leave the final thoughts piece there, but the one thing I really want to say is don't be afraid to put your ideas out there. Really find those people in your community who want to make things happen, work with them, and really just live that vision of what you want your destination to be. So thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Wow, that's pretty amazing, the work that you guys are doing there. And what a great case study for a northern pristine destination. I really can't wait to go, and I encourage everybody to see the YouTube presentations and add Gros Morne to your must-see places, I guess, before you die, as I say. Okay, we have a couple of questions, and I'm going to, we're running a little bit late, so I hope the speakers can stick around for a little bit longer, and we have a couple. One is from Raquel Taylor, where she's asking us how can we as an industry promote tourism, sustainable, I assume this is sustainable tourism within Canada. That probably links also well with the question of the path to purchase process. And it links with, what channels can we use, the messaging around the sustainability, the messaging for the industry, and the messaging from the consumers. So Laura and or Jonathan, any comments about the suggestions of how we can enable the industry to promote more Canadian tourism that is sustainable?
That's a loaded question. I guess individually for each destination or attraction, it's up to them to communicate what they're doing, and it never hurts to to tell people what you're doing that's so fantastic. And I think maybe it's built into our Canadian DNA that we're kind of modest about what we're doing that fits into sustainability or what we're taking responsibility for doing. So the more information you can put out there, the better. Social media is a good place to start. As far as pulling different attractions and destinations that are adhering to those same principles, that's a tougher nut to crack, just because it really takes a lot of making sure everybody's doing what they're saying they're doing. And in a country as big as Canada, we can't, that the resources are not there to be able to be everywhere, all the time, to make sure everybody's living up to their expectations. I don't know if there's any other, if either Jacqueline, you or Jonathan have anything to add to that, but that it's really a loaded question without an answer that I can otherwise think of.
Yeah, I guess to your point is that because there's so many destinations and there's so many different jurisdictions and they have so many different ways of so many different promotional plans and budgets and strategies that it would be hard to say that what can we do as a country. But as you have demonstrated, there are initiatives, as both of you have demonstrated, initiatives that are being done that would encourage the promotion of the destination. The key issue is how do we link it to the industry, which it actually addresses, I'm going to jump over one question, but addresses Mark's question, where he's asking, your educational programs that you have, and it's important to find ways to include the travel agencies in a lot of the training and the education, and how do we offer competitive commissions to encourage the sell and the marketing of these places. And both of you work for nonprofit organizations, but the question essentially would be, what is it that organizations like yours do to link your initiatives to the travel industry, and that would include travel agents, and then the commissions would be coming from suppliers of the destination in which you operate. So if you could comment on that as well.
Well, from the Gros Morin perspective, we try to build that process, especially the travel trade side, into a lot of the training and development work that we do. To be honest with you, from an operator perspective, I'm not sure that there is a high level of understanding around the travel trade side at this point in regards to how they actually work and integrate what they're trying to do into the travel trade component piece. But we've been able to bring individuals from various tour operators in to actually explain to them what they're looking for and what they're doing. I think there's just a need to bridge that gap so that there's a clearer understanding of what sort of travel agencies and the travel trade side do and how it can benefit the local operators and destinations in both from an economic standpoint, but also from a community standpoint. So I still think that there's a lot of confusion out there because it seems to be handled at levels higher than the individual operator at this point in time, and that could be because a lot of our operators are smaller scale. But I think that this is being able to try to bridge that, and what we've tried to do is sort of demystify the whole travel trade, travel agency side, that it isn't that they're taking everything in commissions from you. So
right.
It's really key to get that education out there.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that that whole link to travel trade is extremely important, and the travel trade essentially becomes your channel to one of your channels. You have the direct channel to the consumer, but then the travel trade itself is a massive enabler, especially through tour operators and travel agents and suppliers with transportation suppliers and then your local suppliers as well. So I agree. I think there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done in that area to link the work that you guys do to the travel trade. to benefit, to grow it in a sustainable way and then benefit that triple bottom line that we're talking about, right? Julie had another question with regards to UNESCO. There's always a lot of debate about the benefit of having a UNESCO heritage site designation. Do you, either of you, have any statistics or any idea of how it encourages tourism? Is it benefit?
From our perspective, I'd say it's really difficult in that I'm not sure that the designation itself to visitor had massive impact. It was more about the level of pride that got instilled from the community, in that they were recognized now. Everybody had been telling them they were world class, and now all of a sudden this international based organization comes in and says, no, you are world class. And all of a sudden light bulbs started going on in people's heads. And I think that's the great thing about a lot of these designations, is that it sort of reconfirms in people and gives them that confidence that I talked about earlier. Now all of a sudden this UNESCO designation is really about this internal belief in who you can be, what you can do, and how it connects through to this incredible World Heritage Site. So to me, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's hard to put your finger on it, but really what I would say is that it added a level of confidence that hadn't been there before, and it allowed them to say, yes, we are a world-class destination, and we've got these designations to prove it, but more so we're proving it by the experiences now that we're offering that are complementary to the guiding principles of UNESCO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, it's a great validation of the quality of a destination, the sustainability, the culture, how everything links into making it a really great experience, a great tourism experience. The other question that we have is, do both of you have any other examples of Canadian destinations that are doing the kind of work that you're doing? I know, Laura, you addressed some of them, but anyone else comes to mind to illustrate also across Canada how we're working to preserve the destinations, promote them, and making Canada a world-class
Absolutely.
tourism.
There's lots of examples out there. How to pick to pull ones in to talk about is always the hardest part. What I might suggest doing, we had a couple years ago, we had an international conference on responsible tourism in Edmonton, and a lot, I'd say about 80% of the presentations were Canada-based, and they were examples, case studies of things that were going on in the country that fit into the world of responsible, sustainable tourism, and that fall under different categories. And there's a link to that on our website, the icrtcanada.ca website, or it's just rtd5.icrtcanada.ca. That has a larger list of examples from Manitoba up in Churchill, and what they're doing with the polar bears, all the way up to the Yukon. I can't remember who all we had from Alberta. There were plenty of examples from Alberta just because they were the host province. But it depends on the actual topic. There's examples of everything across the country. For culinary tourism, Nova Scotia and Ontario are doing great things connecting producers to the tourism industry. Yeah, it's hard to pick one or two, or to
no, exactly, yeah.
But to go to the different website and pull out some of those examples there, and their presentations are there where they talk about what they're doing.
That's right, yeah, and that was a great conference. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but the feedback was pretty amazing. I have one last question, if I may, Jonathan, and then we'll wrap it up. But I was really interested on the model that you talked about, investment versus funding. And could you provide one example where this has been successful, and then also what are the challenges of looking for investment versus funding in terms of due diligence, time, preparation, politics?
I would say most recently we we were trying to implement this cultural blueprint piece, and initially it started out from knocking on government doors, so to speak, and looking for funding. When we started working with the organization that was helping us, this consulting-based organization that was helping us do the plan for the region, really we started talking about it in a different vocabulary around, we need to be thinking what the investment and what that return on that investment is going to be, because people are looking at funding as money that you're going to give to you and you're just going to carry it out over 18 months and that's going to be that. If something happens, great. If not, then it's a check mark in somebody's box.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to put it any more pleasant. And what we decided was, we need to do this and do this differently. And we looked at it and challenged ourselves to say, we've got to break free from this ourselves. And so we came about it of going after other organizations, other partners, and saying, look, this is what you can get back. If we're able to do this level of an investment, this is the return on it coming back to you as a business entity. So I think that surprised a lot of people, and it really started everybody's ears started to pick up. I'm like, whoa, it's really one of the ways of coming at it from a practical business perspective more than anything.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea, essentially, that you are looking at investments from different sources. The way you talk to the government is different than talking to the private sector, but the operative word is invest. So you people who are putting money into developing initiatives feel that they have a part of it. And the return can be tangible or intangible as well, right? They can be brand recognition, corporate social responsibility, all kinds of other very, very important value add for organizations, as I assume it will be for companies like Transat. So now that's really great. It's very encouraging, and I think more organizations need to look at formalizing that model because it talks about shared value right across the full value chain and across different entities, for profit and not for profit, as well as governments, right? So thank you very much. One last thing is to answer Mark. Yes, you're saying that someone like Baxter can bring players together, and that's the whole purpose of the RTTF. And this is our 6th year and our second year as webinars. So we also encourage those who work in the retail sector to continue to encourage your colleagues to join RTTF, the RTTF webinars live, or to ensure that you spread the word and provide the links to the webinars that we have done. That's the only way in which we're going to continue to expand, raise awareness and expand sustainability right across all areas of tourism. So thank you, our speakers, and thank you everyone for your attention today. We have 2 more webinars left, and please register if you haven't done so already. Tell your colleagues, and again, download and pass it on. Download the webinars and just pass it on to friends and colleagues. We're looking for nominations for the 2012 RTTF Awards, so please submit one. There's more information on the website. And lastly, but not least, we'd like to thank our series sponsors, Air Canada, Delta, Ted Rogers Management at Ryerson University, and also our webinar sponsor, TIC Insurance. So see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much. And the next presentation is in 2 weeks, Wednesday, that's right, on the 14th. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Jacqueline.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Jonathan.